Hi, welcome to a series on pincushions. We're making 20 different pincushions. This is pincushion number 2. We've already done one. So this is the one that we're going to be doing this time. This is just another fairly cute little pincushion. It's just a little house block. And then on the back here, we've got a nice little pocket so that we can store some scissors, needles, all sorts of other little things in our pincushion at the same time if we want to, particularly if we like to take things out and about with us when we go to little sewing groups or sewing days. It's nice to have somewhere that you can keep everything all in one place. So it's a pieced house block. So there's a pattern. If you've signed up with GourmetQuilter to receive the patterns, you'll have something like this that you can download and print that tells you all about the cutting sizes and things like that. So I'll go ahead and just show you how we get started with our little house here. So I've got everything laid out over here. All the pieces. I've got my door, I've got my walls, and there's a bit of wall that goes above the door when that's all joined together. And then there's a little bit of background, so that's this background little bit here that sits under the roof. So that all gets made up into one piece, and then this little bit of grass at the lower edge. So that's really straightforward piecing. We join this to this to this. Then we put this over on there, and then we put that on each end and that one underneath. Then we're going to make the roof. So I think I'll go ahead and I'll just join up, just using a 1/4 inch seam allowance, my walls and door, and put the wall on top and the sides and the grass. And then I'll come back and show you how to do the roof. So I've gone ahead, I've joined my walls, my door, my side background and my grass. So we've really now got the lower part of this block done already. So now we want to do this roof. So I'm probably upside down to you at the moment. However, the roof comes out, the background extends a little bit beyond, so it's not just a regular triangle on the roof there, it's a little bit of a rectangle. So what I've gone and done is I've marked a diagonal as if it was a square. So simply because it is a rectangle, by folding over and having these two edges sit together from the point and pressing that, I can still get the diagonal as if it was a square. And so we want this to go on to here, so we're going to position it this way so that the folded line comes out at the point down here, and we're going to sew on that fold from up here all the way down to here, so that when we flip that back, that's going to extend beyond the roof at this end. So I'll go ahead and stitch that. In fact, I can just do that now so that you can see how I'm going. So I'm starting from this corner up here, coming down along my folded line, or you could draw the line if you like, but it's quite easy to put a fold in when it's a rectangle. Or you could fold and draw. So I've stitched that now, and that's going to press back, but I'm going to just trim that corner off first. So we just want to trim it 1/4 inch away, so trimming away the corner. And then press that, and then we just need to put the other side on just the same. So press it into the corner, and that should just give us that nice little rectangular end. And now I've got to do the same thing with this one here. So I'm going to position this one so that it sits, I've got my fold here, so I've got my corner matching up here, I've got this folded corner coming out at that point there, and this will overlap up here because that's going to be our seam allowance area, so we want that to overlap. So I just now need to stitch that line there, and then we've just got to put the top piece on a little bit like we've put the grass at the bottom. There's just a little piece at the top just to give a little bit more space before the seam on the pincushion. So I'll go ahead and do this and join this on, and then we've just got to of course join that to that. So I'll come back in a minute when I've done some of this. So I've gone ahead, I've got my roof corners done, and I've got my top piece of sky attached to the top there. So now we just need to put the roof on our house because we don't want the rain to come in. So I'm just going to go ahead, and everything should just fit, and we'll just stitch that across there, and then we'll have made the whole of the front, and then we'll need to do some little bits of quilting. So I'll just pop this roof on and we'll press it, and we'll talk about what we're going to do next. So I'm just going to press that seam up with the roof. It's looking quite cute, this little house. So what I did when I made this one was I've actually just quilted on it, and I've quilted the back as well, because I just felt that it gives it a nice bit of body. I've just got a very thin, lightweight batting here. It is actually just very lightly fusible. It's a cotton poly blend. So I just need to put that on there and quilt it. And while I'm at it, I might as well do the back piece as well. I'm going to use the same background colour for the back and also for the pocket too. So all three of those pieces could just have a little bit of quilting. Now you might like straight lines, you might like wiggly lines. I like wiggly lines. One of the reasons I'm putting the batting in is I like the finish, but also because I'm going to be using this crushed walnut shell as my filler, and the batting just helps give it a bit more body before there's the shell, and it just protects all sorts of things and stops some of the filling coming through the fabric later on. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm actually going to free motion. I'm just going to do a little wiggly stitch. So I'll just get these ready and I'll show you what I'm doing when I've got my machine all set up. So I've put my free motion foot on, I've dropped my feed teeth, and I'm just going to do some wiggly lines. So you, as I said, you might prefer to do just straight lines. I just thought it would be kind of fun with these little wiggles, so I'm just free motioning some little wiggles here. Straight but not straight. And I'm going to do the front and the back the same, and I'm probably going to do them maybe every ½ inch or so. It's only a small piece. So they're just parallel wiggly lines, and I'm just using a grey thread, nothing amazing, but this would be an opportunity if you have nice decorative threads. You could do some really amazing work at this stage. So I'll go ahead, I'm going to do my back and my pockets all exactly the same way. So I'll do all that and come back and show you how to put it all together. So I've gone ahead, I've done all my wiggly line quilting. You can probably see it on the back there. And I've done it on the pocket piece and I've done it on the back piece, and I've already trimmed those, but we just need to trim this down. The batting was just slightly larger, just so that we've got a little bit of room to move. So just like we trim a quilt really, we just want to trim it to the block size. And then we're ready to make the pocket that goes on the back. Just make sure everything's sitting nice and straight here. So that's looking pretty good. So now with the pocket, and the pocket has a lining. So I've got the lining piece here. So the lining is longer because we're going to do a little flip over edge on it there. So the way to do that is to put this right sides together with the lining, which is longer. And we're going to stitch a 1/4 inch seam across there, and then we're going to flip it over and back and then stitch just underneath. So I'll go ahead and get the pocket lining attached here and then show you how we actually flip it over and stitch it down. So I've stitched that across with its 1/4 inch seam allowance. I'm just going to press that now that way, and then I'm just going to flip that over, and I'm just going to bring that pocket fabric, lining fabric down now, so that we should have a nice bound edge at the top there without actually having to do any binding whatsoever. And that's all sitting pretty nicely. So all I need to do now is just a little line of stitching in the ditch really, or it could be on the green bit, it wouldn't matter. I'm just going to do that, and then it's ready to start putting together with the other pieces for the pincushion. So I'll go ahead and get this done. So I've gone ahead, I've got my pocket all ready, it's looking good. So I just need to position the pocket onto the back like that, so they're both right sides up. I am just going to pop a little pin in just for the time being. And then we're going to put this one right, so the pocket goes in from this edge, so we want the house up the right way. So we're going to put them right sides together now, just to position them, and then we're going to stitch all the way around with our 1/4 inch seam, but we need to leave a gap one side so that we can turn it and fill it. So I'm going to suggest you could do it down the side, but we have got this extra layer of pocket and the same thing along the lower edge, so I'm going to suggest that you leave a gap in the top edge because there's the least amount of other things to worry about there. So I'm not going to leave that pin in there because that will be in my way when I'm trying to turn it, and it will get me for sure. So I'm just going to leave a gap here, 1/4 inch all the way around, and I'm going to clip my corners, and then we can turn it and fill it. We are nearly done already. So I'll go ahead and get that ready. So I've gone ahead, I've done my 1/4 inch seam all the way around. I think it's a good idea to clip the corners, so don't cut your stitching, but just cut those little corners off because they're extra bulk when we turn it out the right way, particularly down this lower edge where there's the pocket thickness as well. You wouldn't have to quilt the pocket, but I quite like it to be quilted because when I pop scissors and things in, then I know that it's all going to be okay. So when you turn this out the right way, you want the pocket to stay with the back if you can. It won't really matter because you could turn it out afterwards, but we've just got to bring it through our little gap in that top seam there, and then push those corners out. So when you're using a batting like this on small things, I do suggest a very lightweight, fairly thin batting or something, or none at all if you would prefer to, but if you're going to use one, just keep it a very lightweight one, otherwise it really does get too bulky when you're turning things out and things like that. So a little tool to help with the corners is always a good thing. And then I'm going to give it a little press before I fill it, just because I like to help those seams, and don't forget to run your tool around the seams as well. It just kind of helps them to come out nicely. So that's looking pretty good. So I like to press in the little area that we've left open because we've got to stitch that in. I'm going to be stitching it in by hand. And so I like to get that as straight as I can with how it would be if it was stitched across the same as the other seams. And then just make sure these seams are all just sitting out as straight as you can get them at this stage. Even though with the fill and things it won't really show, it just sort of helps everything sit nicely if it's nice in the first place. And that's all looking pretty good. So I'm just ready now to fill. Don't they look different when they're in different fabrics? It's amazing. Always nice to see things in different fabrics. So now I've got this walnut shell here that I'm going to use to fill with, and I've got myself a funnel which I pour it in with, and I will just go ahead. So I'm just going to do this. You can't do sort of too much at a time, just let it go in. So once you get some in there, and because we want to fill it reasonably, you can, I have this trusty little chopstick here, you can sort of push it into the corners a little bit. It just needs a little bit of encouragement because the walnut shell is not especially heavy, so it will eventually find its way there, but when we're filling, it's quite nice to just put a little bit in. So I'll go ahead and get this all filled up, and then I'm going to hand stitch close that little opening, and so I will show it to you when I get there. So I'm just finishing off the hand sewing. I'm just doing a little over stitch along here. I've just got another couple of stitches to go and this pincushion will be done. Tie it off a little bit there. When I tie off, I usually do a little loop around the needle a couple of times, pull it up tight, and then I usually stick the needle in and bring it out somewhere in the pincushion and leave and snip the thread there, because that then leaves a bit of a thread in there so it shouldn't unravel or anything. So there we have our little house pincushion. We've got two little house pincushions now. So when I filled it, there's just a little bit of room in there, enough that you can gather it together, hold it together for when you're doing the stitching. The little pocket is really cute in the back. You can pop your small scissors in. You could pop a little packet of needles in there as well, and you're all set. What more could you want? Maybe put that in another time. It hasn't got its plastic sleeve on it. But I thought that was a really great little pincushion, really useful, really practical, and not even hard to make. So I will see you again with pincushion number 3.